Perfect. All right, wonderful. So we'll be talking about Plato's point, and that's huge. Plato's point is the core of all. And then we have the exoteric and the esoteric learning instruction. Being embarrassed by humanity is a huge part, a huge psychological topic to discuss. And then we have point of lie to breaking point metric. So, and then the 7 core exoteric lessons. So this is on the agenda of where to start. This is the beginning point. And then we'll just go through until we reach a point of, I call it slush brain, the point of slush brain. Slush brain is when you receive so much data and you're overwhelmed and you have to process it. So when
Yes.
we learn, we're putting data into our subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind holds and holds and expands it. Exactly like putting food in your mouth. It's the same thing. But imagine you're never swallowing. And that is currently our educational system, where teachers put information in a child's brain, and the child is expected to hold all that data without ever processing it. And it's like holding food without ever swallowing. That's when overwhelm occurs, and that's when mental deterioration begins. So it is vital that we provide students with a digestion period. And the rhythm that I located in the subconscious mind that is identical to Mother Nature is a 3-part system of play, learn, self-processing, and then creation, build. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a whiteboard. And this is one of the things I love about Zoom, so I can show you this right here.
What is the adding of the 3 things that you have mentioned?
They are the learning process.
Learning process.
Yes. The learning process is a 3-part rotation. The learning process is also our regulation for mental health. It's the same thing. And this is where, as we dive into this, you're going to see just how identical mental health and education are, how very much they are the exact same thing. So we have play, learn. And in play, learn, what we see is a low stimulus, a low stimulus
Can you
social.
zoom a bit, please?
Yes. Let me see here. Are you able to see it?
Yes, it is
Okay.
now very good.
Okay, very good. And then and now you can print, I will be printing this out later. So it's going to be a PDF when we're done. So you can go back to the notes and you'll be able to look at this. And then we have the self-process, and this is silent isolation. This is why we need to be alone. And then we have the creation, build, discovery. This is where we explore to find components with which to build, create, learn. This is high stimulus and social. So if you think about a playground, this is actually where that takes place. I might have it. Play, learn is what I call the kindergarten room. And then creation, build is what I call the discovery center. So you're actually playing in both places, but one is high stimulus, and this is very important, high vulnerability. And this play learn is low stimulus with medium vulnerability, medium to low vulnerability. And then the self process is no vulnerability. This is very, very important. And low stimulus or no stimulus. Now, being able to move between all 3 of these is self-regulation. and self-nourishment. Now, in a traditional educational atmosphere, the child is not allowed to move freely between all three of these places. And that is the problem. The other problem, I'm going to go ahead and document here. That way we can see it. The problem with traditional. Only the child or the student or the adult can determine when they need to move and fluctuate between these three places. And if they do not learn how to move between these three positions, then they do not grow. They become stuck in a certain mode and they end up swinging into black and white thinking. This is what causes black and white thinking. Over time, black and white thinking deteriorates into prejudice and one definition thinking. And this is a three-part thinking. It's spectrum thinking. This is what psychology is trying to get people into. And when we say you need to self-regulate, this is what we're trying to get them to do, is use the self-discernment, self-judgment to assess when their system needs, wants, and pursues. And that process is self-regulation. So the very first thing we want to teach children in exoteric study is how to manage this. We teach them this, and this solves the majority of all of our problems almost very quickly within a few weeks. We're going to see a massive increase. Now, here's the kicker. This applies to adults. This applies to business owners. This applies to every animal and human on the planet. So psychologists need to practice this. You asked me a couple days ago how I recover from a day of being overwhelmed by a
But
patient. It is this process.
yes, yes.
This is how I do it. It is the ability to regulate between these three things. This is the first ethic, and this is why the ethics must be taught immediately and first. And that is going to be mandatory. This is why. You skip the ethics, you skip this. You skip this, game over. We're right back to the same situation we're trying to get out of. The first ethic is self-nourishment. The second ethic is self-authority. And the third ethic is self-regulation. This is what I refer to as the learning foundational ethics. I'm going to switch that around. The foundational learning ethics. And every one of them has traits. The self-process. Let me make sure I get this right here. So the kindergarten room is the first ethic with self-nourishment. The next one is self-authority, and that's our high stimulus. The next one is self-regulation, third ethic.
High stimulus is which age bracket?
Say that again, please.
Now I'm asking you the second ethics, which age group?
Oh, age group.
Yes.
Oh, this is always, this is from birth and on. They never stop. By the time we reach the second ethic, we should be 2 years old. It should be learned, integrated by 2 years old. So the moment we open our eyes right out of birth, we are already doing this naturally. This is our eat, sleep, poop. That's what this is. This is eat, sleep, poop. This is what we're doing. And then we grow from there to play, social, isolate. And that's when we're walking away from mother, learning our boundary of fear, coming back for self-comfort. My daughter and I were watching an elephant video the other day. It was extraordinary. Elephants are amazing. They are very similar to humans. Their social construct is almost identical to ours, only they're not contaminated with our mental pandemic. I was watching this mother elephant stand by while this baby elephant chased birds. It was cute. And the baby elephant was running all over. And it ran so fast that the baby elephant tripped and fell down. The baby elephant got up on its own and ran back to mother. Mother did not interfere. Mother took one step toward the child with a very, yeah, the baby's going to come back. And the baby elephant came back to the mother and snuggled the mother's leg. The mother patted the baby with the trunk. There, you're okay. That is proper parenting. That is it right there.
Indeed, that is proper.
It is. It was extra. It is beautiful. It was the child who stood up on its own. The mother did not pick the child up. That's important. The child chose on its own to go back to mother. The mother did not say, come back to mom. No, 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 no. The baby has to learn that. The baby had to learn when it was ready to go back out and play again. These are a mammal's life trials. You fail at this and you're going to have mental illness all of your life. Now you have the first ethical problem with addiction and codependency. Now you have the second ethical problem of oversharing and over-connecting and codependency with addictions. And now you have narcissism setting in. By the third ethic, a failure to self-regulate, there's like 3 divisions that divide. The first division is I'm going to compromise and hoard the vantage point so I can stay safe. So then that individual is the one who learns that the vantage point keeps them safe. The other individual is the one that learns I'm going to hide in my cave in self-isolation for safety. So when you look at the mental situation of these three elements, you have the codependent loss of self, and that leads to addiction, depression, and an inability to leave home. That's why we see children not leaving the house. They're incapable to live without parents because they never learned independency. In the first ethic, what we see in the kindergarten room is this is your borderline personality. This is exactly where it is. This is where children or people develop oversharing, overstimulus, and an inability to close to protect the self. And I just realized I was putting these in the wrong place. So let me move these around. This one goes down here. There you go. This one goes up here. And then this one, the third, is the inability to trust. And then we have narcissism. Technically, all 3 of these are a branch of narcissism at different stages. So you can see how this regulation is vital to how we develop and grow. By the first ethic, 1 years old to 18 months, let me put the age in here. We should have learned this lesson, 18 months. Yeah, we have 12 to 18 months. By the second ethic, the child is around 24 to 36 months. And it's around that time that they start using the word no, which is huge for their development. No means I am setting a boundary and voicing my identity. So every time
That
a
is
parent,
authority.
say again?
That is in self-authority stage.
Correct.
The
Yes, very
okay,
much. Yeah.
I get you.
So that as the child around 2 to 3, as soon as they start to say no, that is good. That is so good. We need to reward that. That needs to, and I did this with my children. This is how it goes. Child says no. I am sorry. I am sorry. I need to respect your boundary. So now it brings up the question from the parent. Well, we need to go somewhere. Did you get the child's consent? And this is something that's not in our brains, and this is the problem. Parents have this belief of, well, I want to go visit X. And they don't ask the child if the child wants to visit. One of the individuals I was working with parenting, she did this with her child, and it was extraordinary. If they wanted to go somewhere, they had to include the child in the decision. We need to go to the store. Would you like to go with us? And if the child did not want to go, the child was not forced to go. And that taught respect for the self. And because the child is learning respect for the self, the child is reciprocating that back to the parents. This is where respect comes from. You have to respect the child to receive respect. So you have a lot of parents who are not respecting their children, who are communicating, you don't matter. And it's that communication, your voice doesn't matter, that teaches people, I don't matter. The word matter in physics literally means mass and being visible. In psychology, it's the same thing. To not be seen and to not matter is to not be matter. And that's what we're teaching our children. So in the educational department, when we're looking at a schoolroom, when we're looking at learning, what we're really doing, and we're doing this from the moment they are born, is giving them the freedom to move between these 3 points of learning so that the child can learn how to listen to their system. And that's big right there, is learning how to listen to their system. So what a nourisher, what a cultivator, a parent, a teacher, a psychologist really needs to be learning and doing is training them how to listen to their system and restore the system's natural regulation system. And this is how it's done. With parents, they need to be educated about this system and they need to set the example. They need to provide their child with a psychologically safe environment so that the child knows they have this option and they no longer have to choose between belonging acceptance and survival self-system. This is another huge, huge thing is belonging versus nourishment and survival versus identity and self. This is all still taking place within just the first and second ethic, is making sure that the child is psychologically safe enough so that they can have all 3, belonging, nourishing and survival, and identity and self. And that communicates to the human, you don't have to choose. You can have all 3. You must have all 3. So this right here is the foundation of human mind, humanity, ethics, learning. We mess this up and we have a problem. I could spend weeks just diving deep into this. This is easily, I have so much paperwork on this, so much written documentation. This right here is the core of all of it. Plato's point is the starting point of all introduction. Let me go ahead and get another whiteboard up here.
Okay.
I am incompetent when it comes to tech. Okay, there we are. Okay. So Plato's point is how we deliver. Whenever we have any kind of information at all, it goes through the same process over and over again. And this process is the one that is followed by nature, biology. Every living organism follows this process. And this is Plato's point. All knowledge and information begins at a very specific core point of integrated knowledge. It is the summary. So when you go into university and you're learning a discipline, the very first thing that happens is the teacher gives a lecture about what it is you are pursuing, what it is you are looking for. And they give you a full summation of this is the thesis. In writing, when we write a dissertation, we start with a thesis. And in science, whenever we do scientific method, we begin with a question. This is Plato's point. And then it begins this massive process of logical breakdown and disintegration, where we begin to break down the entire process exactly over a series of events. And then we reach that center fulcrum. This fulcrum is everything. That is our point where we are at the point of most disintegration. We must be here to learn. This is where we understand all the components and we reassemble them. When we reassemble them, we begin the reintegration and the reconstruction process. And it is this process that leads us back to the integrated whole of comprehension, and thus you have integrated knowledge. This is how we integrate information with word that goes into the system through logic to become integrated tuition or intuition. This is how it's done. This is Plato's point. Disintegration. And this is Plato's point, integration. This is where Mother Nature is just beautiful. This process right here is where creation takes place. This process right here is where evolution takes place. Under no circumstances, evolution ever to go inside of creation. That's not going to be okay. That is where you get a cell that is distorted, and if it goes undetected, it becomes cancer. It's because the evolution process has gotten into the creation process. When we are learning, we are going through this process. You are doing it right now. You are given a thesis, and then we started to break down the components, and that's what lessons are. And this is called metacognitive awareness. Metacognitive awareness is the conscious awareness receiving words. The words then are building. This is amazing because you're doing it right now as I'm explaining it. So it's really awesome for me. Your words are now building logical comprehension in order so that you can understand. And then once you reach the point of slush brain, that is where we go, okay, you finally have a full head of knowledge. Now you need to process. And we call that processing. And then you fit it, you literally downgrade your data into your system, integrating it into your system and turning it into intuition. And then you know. Now you have knowledge. And it all is from word. This is what happens with the exoteric studies. Esoteric is where you go and apply this. So metacognitive awareness is stage 1 of learning. Now, this is where traditional schools get this wrong because all they do is metacognitive awareness, which is exoteric. They never allow the student to get into esoteric, which is where learning actually takes place. What we are doing here is preparing you. This is the preparing stage. You are going on a journey. So we want to make sure that you are ready for the journey or it's not going to go well. The journey is when you are working with people and you're applying what you've learned here. I believe that covers that. There you go, preparing you, exoteric. And then stage 2 is going to be the application, which is the actual skill building. And that is where it goes esoteric. Now, the third stage of learning is referred to as the dialogue and the discussion. Now, this is vital. It is dialogue. Dialogue means two, not one. If you are monologuing, you are not teaching. Lectures, yeah, this is where, this is the problem right here, is a properly trained teacher, a cultivator, will do metacognitive awareness, simple, clear, concise, break it down into nutritional nuggets, and then walk away. Now you go apply it, have your adventure. And then you're working through it. You're going to hit an obstacle. That's good. The obstacle is what people call problems. They're not problems. It's learning. You found Mother Nature's classroom. So when you find Mother Nature's classroom, you're supposed to apply the metacognitive awareness to the problem and solve it. And then you're supposed to go through scientific method. You then come back to the teacher and say, okay, this is my data. This is the scientific method. This is the math and the logic. This is my conclusion. What are your thoughts? And you discuss it. This is called exploratory dialogue. And it is the discussion that allows the maneuvering of logic so that comprehension can navigate around the obstacle. And that's the learning, is how to navigate around the obstacle. Once you master that skill, then you can prevent the obstacle entirely and you literally live with life without problems. How are you doing, Art? I'm assuming you're following all this clearly.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any questions? Anything you want to highlight at this point?
Yes. Now, when we have spoken about the first things that we have covered about the 3 stages.
Mm-hmm.
And the second stage you have said the self-authority stage, where the child begin to say no. They
Yes.
begin to operate in an independent form of mind.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There is a theory that we studied in university, Sigmund Freud theory. Are you aware of Sigmund Freud?
Yes,
And,
I have studied a lot of him. Yes.
and you know about the agents of socialization.
I do, I'm going to need you to translate that. I don't memorize. So what could you explain it?
So, like what I wanted to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
that during this second stage, do socialization play a vital role in regards to that stage?
Yes. Yes, very much. Oh, it's everything. The second stage is 100% social. 100% social. It is vital. What you are doing in the second stage is you are learning this is where it's going to get real fun. So let me break this down further. So what you are, these are the components and the traits of each ethic, of the first three ethics. So we're going to focus on the second ethic. And we basically have the safe, I'm going to say the word comfort zone, but I don't like doing that. And then we're going to have the adventure zone, and that is pure social. And you're basically navigating between the two. And the safe comfort zone has a quiet, I like to call it the genie bottle, which is where you're isolated for processing. So this would be your spectrum. This very much is your spectrum. This is where people really mistake the concept of introvert, extrovert. There is no such thing as introvert, extrovert. What you are is balanced. And if you're not balanced, it's because there is a mental illness present. So the adventure zone is high social, and the isolated genie bottle is low social, no social. What you really want is a healthy balance where it maneuvers and moves you according to those three ethics based upon your stages and needs. Now, there's three types of stages. I need to clarify this. There's two types of the ethical stages. There is the core present foundational one that you're in, and then there is the rotation that you go through. So the 12 ethics go through the full rotation while you are in each and every ethic. So right now, I am in the 9th ethic of the 6th round. That is my core. That's where I am. And I'm going through all the ethics as literally like a generator. It is exactly like a generator. And by allowing myself to flow and move with the rotation, it's progressing me into the 10th. It's literally a motor where this is going and it's moving me to the 10th ethic of the 6th round. And I'm literally hitting little milestones inside the ethic to get me to the next growth point. It takes approximately 1 week per ethic in an optimized, healthy mind. In an unhealthy mind, you're looking at 1 ethic every 40 years. That's how bad it is. That is exactly the metric that I discovered when I did this work, is you're talking 1 ethic per week is now doing 1 ethic per 40 years. That's the difference. You can literally measure mental illness with this thing. Now, in these 3 traits of the ethics with the adventure zone, that second ethic, what you have, and this is the common denominator of all the ethics, you have a growth trial. The growth trial is going to be the ultimate lesson you have to learn to graduate from that ethic. You are going to have a challenge. The challenge is going to be indulge on X and avoid Y. And that's the problem. Are you still with me? Okay, yes, I believe yes. Are you still with me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure how much. I can hear you, see you now. The way my video is, I can hear you, see you, yes.
You can't see me?
I can, yes.
I'm very clear.
Yep, you are.
All right.
Did you miss any, where was the last part you left off?
The last part you are speaking about the socialization, how it blends in the second ethics that we are talking about.
Okay, all right. So we have the Traits of ethics are the genie bottle isolated, the safe comfort zone, and the adventure zone social. And this is a spectrum. So we're supposed to be moving very fluently within all three of these, self-regulated. This is healthy. If you claim to be I don't know the modern word for it, an extrovert, then you're actually not healthy. If you claim to be just an introvert, you're not healthy. You should be all three moving, flowing. The rate
So
of
you should be all inclusive.
yes, correct. You should be all inclusive. You need to have all three into you, and you
So
need to be using them.
what should we do to somebody who says that he or she is introvert?
If they are an introvert, it means that they have preferred and they are staying into the genie bottle too much, and they're not regulated or balanced or aligned. It is definitely a lack of the first ethic. That means that they have not learned how to self-nourish. It means that they don't know how to restore their energy. They are not objective, they are subjective. It means they have a mental lack of discipline. So they absorb people because they don't know how to close. It's an inability to close. As a
So
result,
can we link that to the temperaments? We studied about temperament, the sanguine. Do you know that?
I know sanguine from a different discipline. How do you mean it here? Could you explain?
Temperaments, they are traits that controls the behavior of a personality.
I remember studying about this with Socrates and Plato. And then it linked over into Greek mythology. I have to remind you, I come from an ancient Greek educational system. So a lot of the Roman educational system stuff, I don't know about a lot of it because it's Roman. And also when I hear a lot of it, it's from a different logical sequence. And because it's from a different logical sequence, it doesn't fit into this.
All
And
right.
this is going to be something where I can give you the Greek logical sequence and show you the series of how it unfolds. And then other people are going to see if it fits or if it doesn't. I used math to do a fact check on this stuff to validate that it aligns with physics, math, everything. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's believed and used in traditional psychology that's not going to be valid over here because there's two different logical sequences and they don't match, which is the problem.
They don't match. Yes, they don't
Yeah.
match.
And what's going on is Mother Nature has her logic sequence. The ancient Greek educational system is aligned to Mother Nature's sequence. The Roman educational system is not aligned to Mother Nature's sequence. The subconscious mind is aligned to Mother Nature's sequence. So this is what the Greeks actually did. You have the Mother Nature sequence, you have the subconscious mind sequence, and you have the academic discipline sequence. These three sequences match. They are logical. So what the Greeks did was they built an educational system around it to preserve the mind, to align it to Mother Nature. And then Rome came along, destroyed that system, and created its own. And they created it against Mother Nature and the subconscious mind. So it breaks the mind to fit it to Rome. And that leads to mental illness. And that is the problem. So there's a lot of stuff. If I followed Mother Nature, subconscious mind, and science to locate all this data. So if I'm saying something and it's not matching, it's because it's not in Mother Nature's system. So there's going to be a lot of stuff where we can see that was man-made. It's not natural. And now you're talking about doing a triage to remove the unnatural man-made stuff from what's natural and compatible with science, Mother Nature, the academic disciplines, and the subconscious mind. So that is it right there. So what we're looking at in the early stages with the second ethic is that high social and that rotation. The rotation of that three-part system is a mathematical formula that Mother Nature uses in everything, which is this. It is the 3-in-1 formula. Everything revolves around this 3-in-1 formula. This is the truth formula. If the 3-in-1 formula is not present in one of 4 formats, then it's not true. It's a lie. So if you have a 2, it's incomplete. If you have the other formula is the 1 in 12 formula, it's the 12 into 3. 12 into, yeah, I need to put this backwards. It's 3. There you go. It's that. So this is the other type of formula she uses. And there's that 3 again. So you have 12, which can be condensed into 3, which can be condensed into 1. This is integrated mathematics. This is the math that Mother Nature uses. This is the math that's been missing. The other one she uses, now these are her melodic lines. These are the x-axis formulas, or the melodic line. She has also harmonic or y-axis formulas, and those are on the 5s and the 7s, which is why we see 5, 7, 8, and 40 as constant numbers that also come up. So I'm just going to put that here. It's 8, 5, 7, and 40. And when we see that, we are talking about Mother Nature's harmony. And that forms an actual cube. That leads into the math of all of this. So that is, if it's true, it aligns to one of those formulas. If it's not true, it doesn't align. So a lot of Freud's work, I couldn't use it. It was invalid. I couldn't use almost anything he touched. Carl Jung was solid with a good chunk of what he had. Dr. Nathaniel Branden was very good. But Dr. Nathaniel Branden studied under Ayn Rand, a philosopher, for 20 years. Dr. Aziz Gazipura, his work was solid. Dr. Graves, with spiral dynamics, his work was solid. So if philosophy was integrated into the psychologist studies, then they were closer to the truth. But the majority of psychology comes from Roman logic, and as a result, it's incompatible and it breaks the mind, which is the problem. So with the progression through these first 3 ethics, it starts off with that isolation of being alone and learning how to regulate. And then it moves over to the safe zone with the mother and the child. And what we see is this, we're basically building our boundaries. We're building our perimeter for safety. And the more we learn, the more we expand our perimeter of safety. This is the child at that mother point going out to this point and saying, oh, this is where I'm scared. I'm going to come back to mother. And then they move further away. They come here. Oh, this is where I'm scared. I'm going to come back to mother. And what they're doing is actually using scientific method to expand and pioneer their own boundary. So you have these pioneer stages. That is the second ethic. That is the high social. So the child is pioneering new territory of the self. That is what they are doing at this stage. Now, if the child is not free to pioneer new territory, they're going to become prejudiced, terrified, and they're not going to have the freedom. And that's where you see if a mother over enables or over helps the child will not be free to pioneer. The child has to learn how to regulate pioneering with self-soothing and self-nourishing. And we do the self-comfort here with self-nourishing. And this is where we do processing and organizing. And that's your first, right here is your first ethic.
Yes.
And yes, socializing is mandatory for that second ethic. So in the second ethic, what you are learning is the question, how do I fit into this society? Who am I in relative to society? That is the question being asked at the second ethic. The indulge is indulge on social. Now, the authority is always a factor in all of this. Every ethic is about authority. In the first 7 ethics, that's all you're doing is defining authority. How you define authority, value, and priority is going to determine your ethic. In the second ethic, you define your authority by what the leader says I can do. But that's not the lesson. That is not the right lesson. The lesson is I don't need others to be my authority. That is the lesson to be learned. Which is why if parents obstruct these ethics, the lesson does not get learned. So we see this a lot with religion. A great example of this is religion. In the second ethic, a God is established as the authority. In a household where the head of the household has defined the laws of the land as the authority, that is defined as that's who we obey, that's the authority. And now it compromises the self. What about self-authority? Now, this is where we don't trust the self to learn ethics because we're not aware of them. So we use law to keep the self in check when in fact we are disabling the self-ethics to do its job because we don't trust. That happens in parents who never learned the first, second, and third ethic. So distrust becomes a huge part of our societal behavior. And as a result, we don't trust our children to become ethical without threat of danger. That's the society we live in. We don't trust that our child will learn without fear of damnation. We don't trust that our child is going to go to school and improve themselves without threat of failure. So parents who don't trust humanity end up training their children, you're a failure if you don't do X. And they're doing this as a parenting method to scare the child into the desired behavior because they don't believe, because they don't know that the ethics are naturally embedded there and in place. So their attempt to structure the child ethically interferes with the ethical progression of the child's development. So the purpose of the second ethic is to socialize, to discover that you do have your own authority. But it's vital that you learn how to maneuver between pioneering and self-nourishment, and that's where you learn that. But if the parent is over-enabling, they will keep the child from pioneering when the child is ready. This is where we get into the formula. Indulge A, this is where addiction comes from, leads to indulge B, leads to the integration of A and B. That is the most valuable formula, and it is the one formula that follows through the entire ethical sequence. This is the formula that follows us everywhere. Indulge A is, let's call that the left of the pendulum. And then indulge B is the right of the pendulum. We are talking about black and white thinking. And then the integration is the center fulcrum of balance. We tell children things like everything in moderation. You cannot tell a child to learn and be moderated. They have to learn moderation. This is how. The child must be free to indulge on A. Freedom to indulge. Now, this is where parenting interferes with this process. You have a parent who does not want their child to eat candy. They want them to be healthy. So the parent forces the child to eat healthy when the child wants to indulge on candy. The parent takes the candy away. Now, what they've really done is compromise the child's freedom. The child is not about, I want candy. It's about, I want freedom. What the child is really doing is pursuing the freedom to learn. Moderation. But they can't because the parent has interfered with the process. So now it's no longer about the candy. It's now about control. It's about pursuing freedom. So the child seeks their freedom by sneaking the candy or the cookie in the candy jar. And the parent interferes and punishes. You are not allowed to have the freedom to nourish your own learning process. That is what the child learns. That lesson goes on so that the child now has a lifetime of craving sweets, sugars, candies. They're really pursuing freedom to show themselves, I have the freedom. Now let's turn it around. Let's assume that it's alcohol where they are pursuing that. Now you have the shaming. Now the shaming is now accompanied with the lesson. So now you have a person who wants to indulge to pursue their freedom, but they're shamed and made to feel guilt for pursuing their freedom. And this is where we have a problem. One of my favorite MASH episodes is with Mulcahy, Father Mulcahy. He was talking with Rosie at Rosie's bar, and she was frustrated with this dog. The dog would constantly come in looking for alcohol. The dog was an alcoholic. So Father Mulcahy says, give the dog as much as it wants. They put down a bowl and they poured all the whiskey. He says, bring me your hardest liquor. So they brought out this alcohol and they poured it into the bowl and they let the dog drink to its heart's content. Indulge. The next day they came out and they poured all the alcohol into a bowl. The dog smelled it, yelped, and ran away, and it never touched alcohol again. That is how we learn. Freedom to indulge. And that teaches us that we have control over our freedom. We have three core pieces of our humanity that cannot be compromised, and that is truth, freedom, and nourishment, which is love. You compromise these three things, and the entire self-preservation system will go to war. This is Plato's point of the self. You take these three things away from a human being, and they will go to war. Parents are doing this to their children. Teachers are doing this to their students. We are doing this to each other all the time. We are constantly violating our own truth, the freedom, our own nourishment. And our system's self-preservation is going to war. These three core pieces of the human element are composed of the 12 ethics. The 12 ethics are the how to preserve these three aspects of the self. So when we follow the 12 ethics, we do two things. We protect ourselves from the violation of truth, freedom, and nourishment, and we protect others from the violation of their self with truth, freedom, and nourishment.
So yeah, we find that in case the child is denied one of these three things that we have spoken about, then defects are bound to be realized in their lives.
Always, always, guaranteed.
That is why you make them that if you don't want them to take candy, they sneak it in. They try to hide it under the pillow. When the lights are off, then they go and pick them and begin to eat.
Yes, yes. And this is where what we are really talking is an immature, an unmatured human who's now 40, 35 years old. They have no idea how to parent. They are mentally ill, and they have their own fear and insecurity, which they project onto their child. Their child goes through the natural process of this is the truth, this is my freedom, this is nourishment. I need the freedom to pursue my nourishment. My nourishment is knowledge. And this is where a lot of people get this wrong, is they don't know that nourishment is knowledge and learning. This is extraordinary. The more you learn, the less food you need. Learning produces nutrition inside the mind. So the more you learn, the less food you need, because your brain is doing the nourishing for you. It's extraordinary how much this is a part of our nourishment system. And if you don't have the correct and healthy nourishment of knowledge, we don't nourish ourselves. Truth is our freedom metric. If you compromise truth, then we don't have the ability to maneuver or think or travel to get nourishment. So truth is the track for freedom that freedom runs on. To get nourishment. And that's it right there. Truth is the track for freedom that freedom runs on to get nourishment. So you compromise truth and it can't run. You won't have freedom. Every time you hit an obstacle, you need truth to nourish that obstacle, to learn, so you can continue nourishing the self. But if you never learned how to problem solve, you can't get through the obstacle. Now you can't get nourished to solve the problem. Now the logic breaks down and you get catch-22s as a means to repair the broken logic, but the broken logic prevents the truth. So now you're in a cycle. Now the system starts to deteriorate and it activates cell apoptosis, which is sudden cell death, and that spreads.
And so what of the case of, for example, we have an adult who skipped some of these processes, and then they have, in quotes, an conducive behaviors, characters that are not perceived to be right as a result of skipping some of these processes. If we have somebody who is undergoing some of challenges as a result of skipping, of not being given a room to experience all these stages, what can we do to them? And number two, what are these signs that if I, as a psychologist, if I see them in somebody, then I can perceive that there are a number of stages, a number of things that were missing in their early life?
Yep, I'm writing all those questions down and then I'll go through them. So we're back to our logical sequence and we have our progression. So the student starts off here and they're going through. Now they hit this point and let's say they have an obstacle, they have to go back and they have to regulate. So they pause right here. Let's call that a pause point. Now the lesson continues, and this is the problem. The way the educational system is set up in the Roman logic is incompatible with Mother Nature, our rhythm, the academic disciplines, the whole kit and caboodle. So what I learned from Plato was the exact same program that Finland is using. What they are doing is the teacher does not teach, the child does. Exoteric lesson is given. It's a DIY training course. So they all begin here at the same point. And then the child, it's their personal journey. And they go through DIY. It's the same homeschooling program that anyone can use, except the child is learning how to put themselves through it. The cultivator teacher psychologist now becomes a guide to make sure that the child has safety. The cultivator's real job is to nourish the environment so that the child does feel safe enough to progress naturally at their own pace. So they're given the wide berth to explore through discovery. It's literally a playroom where all of the educational resources are available for exploration. So the child will go through exploring and then they will withdraw. And then after X amount of time, they come back and they continue their journey. And then they withdraw. And I'm going to show you this. And you can see the geometry. This is the spiral of learning. This is the helix that the entire system of nature is built around. My art skills are crap, I just gotta say. So you can see how this spiral continues. Now, there is no skipped lessons because the teacher does not do that. That's the exoteric metacognitive awareness. So it would be like child goes to school. The teacher introduces the classroom, welcomes them in. They have to all sit down when they are ready and click on a link on a website, or they have a paper there or a book, and it gives the metacognitive awareness. There is a teacher there at station A. Let's call it station A. And station A is metacognitive awareness. And that teacher stays at station A for any child who needs it. And then the child has another station. That's your discovery station. Let's call that station B, where the child can discover, explore, and learn on their own. But let's say the child gets tired or overwhelmed, they need a process, they go to station C. Now, to answer your question, what are the signs of deterioration? There's going to be a few things. The first thing we want to look for is the frequency. And this is where a lot of people do not know what frequency is. Frequency is the mathematical pattern called a rhythm. That's the first thing. You want the child's mathematical pattern and rhythm. The next thing that you're going to want is obstruction and or imbalance of rhythm. So there's supposed to be a natural 1, 2, 3 pulse. Now the frequency of change, that's what we need to look for. Now this is where there's going to be two things to look up. What we have right now is a control group baseline. Now we're going to get into how science, psychology, and education are merging. This is where I get excited. So we have your control base. This is your defined baseline. This is not right or wrong. This is just data, baseline to look for. Then we're going to watch what the children are doing. Now, the children who come in off the line, according to the neuroscience studies from the 1960s and on, a child, 98% of the population are born genius, which means kindergartners will have the cleanest data. So what we want to do is take 5-year-olds, kindergartners, 3 years old, and we want to track their rhythm. Boom, there's the data. That is the data. Now we can watch and literally use differential equations to calculate the rate of growth so we can track what to expect. And then we'll be able to do a mathematical projection to see precisely what that development will look like. When it starts slowing down, there's a problem. The minute we see a disruption of that pattern, that's a problem. Based off of my calculations with my own studies, what I saw was an increase, a spiraling increase, equivalent to the helix. It's the same helix where it starts off like this and it gets smaller and smaller. It also gets faster and faster until it finally integrates at the bottom and boom, there you go. This is 36 ethical perspectives. That's what we're looking at. So what we want to look for is that spiraling helix going faster and faster until it integrates into the whole. And then the process starts over again. After 36 ethics, it continues again, really slow, and then it picks up pace, and then it drops into it and integrates. The pace changes around the, it's with the last 6 ethics. It's with the last 6 ethics of it. So it's around the 30th ethic, between the 30th ethic level of consciousness to the 36th. That's when we see it go really fast. I am there now with the second round. I went from every week, I would do 1 perspective shift per week. Now I'm at every 5 and 4 days. When I integrated the first time, it was every 3 days, and then boom, and I went through 6 perspective shifts in a day and dropped me. And then it repeated the process, a very long 1 week per perspective. And it started to speed up when I hit those last 6 ethics again. So we'll be able to track it from infancy, from that 8-month-old period all the way up. And as soon as we start to see a decline, here's the other thing, you only need 4 data points. As soon as you have 4 data points from the child, you'll be able to monitor the child's rate of growth. So we're going to want to see how often the child rotates between station A, station B, station C. So cultivators are going to be trained to watch for their rhythm. So let's say we have Johnny. Johnny's going station A, station B, station C, station A, station B. All we're doing is tracking it. And then that will tell us what's the norm, what are the common denominators. Now, mental illness and abuse is going to show up this math like this is where we're going to talk like psychologists now. You're going to see which children are experiencing pedophilia. You're going to see with this math formula which ones are being beaten at home, which ones are being terrorized. This math is going to show you all of it. The math is going to show you all of it. Abusers are not going to be able to hide anymore. That's going to cause I'm prepared for that. We have a whole lot in place for when that happens. And we are going to be able to use the math to hand over to government officials and say, mathematically, we know precisely psychologically which of these children is being abused, how and when. I also have the mathematical formula of all the languages and what signs to look for. We are going to be able to locate very easily abused children.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I'm very excited about this. Very excited. You have no idea. You have no idea how excited about this I am. When I did the math, I was like, we can mathematically determine which children are being abused and what precisely to look for. So as soon as we start to see the math change in their behavior with this 3-part rotation system, once the rhythm is disrupted. Now here's the other sign. Parents are going to be extended an offer. This is beautiful. I love psychology. This is what we call reverse psychology. So we're going to be giving parents the ability to participate in our parenting program. The good parents will go, yes, sign me up. They passed the first test. The parents who don't, those are the ones we're going to want to watch. Who doesn't stand up? What parent doesn't step up and say, you have an educational program that's going to make me a better parent? Sign me up. If that's not happening, that's a red flag. So right there, you want to, and we're going to do it. I have a graph where we're going to check off the parents. Johnny has a parent and they don't want the program. Why? Good question. Why? Now, the argument we're going to hear, well, I don't have time. You don't have time to be a parent? Should you have your child? Just something to think about. You don't have time to be a parent. Do you need help? Because if you need help, we have facilities for that. It sounds like you need help. Here's our options. Well, I don't want that. You don't want help after you have said, I don't want to be a better parent? You see how this can unravel very quickly?
Yes, very, very.
And now you're watching the mathematical pattern of the child's behavior deteriorate. So yeah, this is going to make our job A lot easier with protecting children. A lot easier. A lot easier.
Indeed.
And the more the math comes through, the more math is all truth. And when you know how to speak word and math together, oh, you see lies beautifully. And that is advanced linguistics and logic that I'm going to be getting into with the cultivators to train them how to read math in words. That way, when they have conversation, they can read the math that's actually being there. You cannot mess up math. Math will show you the lies. So yeah, we're talking about a highly secure, safe program that shows everything to nourish a child into health. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is indeed wonderful. That is
Did I
going to be
answer all of your
wonderful.
questions? Yes, the sign.
Sorry?
I'm just checking to make sure I answered all of your questions. Signs of to
Okay.
see for deterioration, skip lessons for regulation. Yeah. So, and this is why it must be turned over into a DIY program, is because the child has to learn at their own pace. Now, in addition to that, the DIY program is going to nourish their self-authority, their independence, their resourcefulness, their confidence, their self-esteem. So that's going to show them, oh, here's the better, this is wonderful. In addition to that, another symptom is the teachers can put down the work and go, oh, I don't have to do half of the work I've been doing. So they're going to get this massive relief of just, I can rest. I would love to see two cultivators at each station. Two cultivators. That way they can cover each other's back and nourish each other. That way one says, I need to be isolated. I need to go in my genie bottle. Okay. And then it's rotating out the cultivators. So I see there being 6 to 9 cultivators per learning environment. And that way they can cover each other's back. That way they can balance it all out and regulate it. And that's something I've been watching is how many children per adult should we have? And that is something I am I need more data, but that is something I'm very tuned into is how many children per adult should there be? So this is one of the questions that the research is going to need to ask and look for when cultivators are taught how to do the math. So teachers are literally going to be using mathematics in real life to monitor the health of their students and themselves and each other, which will show the children how it's done while they are learning mimic, mirror, repetition, response with role model learning. This is a lot. How are you doing with slush spraying? Are you at the point of max here?
So I was just recording that. The teachers are going to use the maths to monitor the the progress of the children.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I like it when you put it that we are going to use maths to determine the situation of the children. And it is
Yep.
going to come out clearly whether they are living a good life or their life is not is deteriorating.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I really like that. I really like that. And indeed, this is going to be high professional
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of
Yeah. I went ahead and I have those PDFs. So we'll be able to, those are available for the lesson so that you can look at those, you can use those for future training. So we'll have those so you can go back to them with this video. So it's the video with the PDFs and then your own QA instruction training, however you want to roll this out in compliance. So what we're looking at doing is setting up, literally turning what I call it, and this is something I really need to address for the non-scientists in the world. Science is not scary, not at all. It is the conscious utilization of logic, math, physics in the disciplines so that we can monitor strategically with deliberation for optimized use. And when people hear science, what they think of is cruel, unethical dissection or animal cruelty. That is not true. And in my firm belief, that is not science. That is actually something I am very strong against. And ethical science is something I am very aggressively pushing of we need to find a better way other than animal experimentation. We really do. And we have the technology that we can do that. So the concept of animal testing is archaic and barbaric, and I don't believe it's necessary anymore. When we stop being lazy and cheating, we can actually find the ethical, proper path to the answer. But the effort has to be made. And that's one of the things as a scientist I am dedicated to, is finding the ethical, better way, even though it means rolling up our sleeves and getting to work. Now, that being said, one of the agendas I have is showing a humane, ethical, and natural scientific method that nourishes people when science is applied appropriately. This is referred to as a living laboratory. It is used in animal studies. When you go to a safari to study the ape or a herd of lions, a pride of lions, you don't walk in with your equipment. You blend in and you become one of them. You observe from a distance so as to not upset the atmosphere. You stay outside. The movie Instinct with Anthony Hopkins, strongly recommend it for learning material. Every psychologist needs to watch this movie. Every psychologist, every Ashavana must watch this movie. Instinct, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Anthony Hopkins. You get to see what a true scientist does. Anthony Hopkins, goes into the jungle and he witnesses the ape. And he starts to ask the question of humanity. Who are we? And he explains how he felt a natural part of him come to life, that is where we belong, living in a jungle with nature beside the ape, and that we have been pulled so far out of nature that we are now a machine and we don't know who we are anymore, and we have lost humanity. Beautiful movie. And he commits a murder, so he's arrested by officials and they interrogate him and they put him in a mental home. The psychologist, Cuba Gooding Jr., comes in and evaluates him, and he's asking the question, are you insane? Are you human? What are you? And the dialogue between psychologist and genius, breaking down the definition of humanity. This movie shaped so much of my work. And when I analyzed everything Anthony Hopkins said about humanity, the same weekend, I watched Apocalypse Now, The Heart of Darkness, and I read Lord of the Flies. This is one of my assignments. Watch Apocalypse Now, read Heart of Darkness, read Lord of the Flies, watch Instinct. Now ask the question, who's right? Is Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now correct? Or is Anthony Hopkins in Instinct correct? Are we humans ethically good, naturally? Or, according to Marlon Brando, are humans naturally born monsters? Who are we? This was a study I did when I was 18 years old, and it is the core of all of my work. What is humanity? With the living lab, it is, if you really want to truly know human, you must present a living lab. You must look at the environment of the child, of the human, and analyze with math how our behavior is changed and altered by that environment. Not for the sole purpose of accumulating data, but to nourish the child, to ensure the optimized environment for their mind to grow and develop. Not only is that humane, I believe it is our ethical obligation to protect our future. And it's all about these living laboratories in a classroom to ensure that we do it the right way, because we cannot afford sloppy trial and error on our future and our children. That to me is disgusting and irresponsible, and that's all we've been doing for 2,000 years. We must start taking the classroom and utilizing that opportunity so we can better nourish our children. And this is how it's done. If anyone has a better,
Yes.
please come forward and let me know.
Mhm. This wonderful. This just wonderful. Now, like the what we discussed yesterday, it was online, and I had to share it with the group of the professionals that we have, and also the group of the teachers that we also have. And a lot of questions also were raised, of which I'm going to work on them probably tomorrow. So I'm going to compile the questions of this, the teaching of today and the
Wonderful.
teaching of tomorrow. So we present them in one package,
Okay.
probably tomorrow when we shall be having the same meeting.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yep, that's
I
perfect.
think that is going to be perfect
Mhm.
to save us a lot of time.
Yep. Now, wonderful. When you
Yeah.
send me the questions, two things. I can write the answers or we can record them live, whichever was best for you. If you want them recorded live, do not give them to me early, because as soon as I see the question, it's going to activate a series of events in my mind, and I'm immediately going to start reverse engineering the answer out of Mother Nature. And that's going to be raw, instantaneous, true knowledge, matched and aligned to my intuition, Mother Nature's equilibrium, and my truth formula. You're going to get genuine, authentic, real answer, real time. So if you give me the question before and then I read it, I'm going to go into immediate answer mode and we're going to lose that data. So what we want to do is, if you want them recorded, then send them to me right before we go live with the recording. If you want them written out, which I can do, then just send them to me when you wish.
I think it is better if we do them recorded,
Okay.
because this is what we are going to share with the rest of the group.
Yep, that
Because
works.
I might be able to capture everything, because we were assuming that everything that we have done with you, then I'm going to share with the rest of the camp.
Yeah,
And you
that
know
works.
that you being might not be able to capture everything, but what we have discussed is captured in form of record. And so what we are going to share with them is going to be complete message. So
Yeah.
I'm going for recording is better. I do
Okay.
believe so.
That's perfect. And what's wonderful about that is I can do a lesson and then a lesson and then Q&A. And then a lesson. There's that rotation again. Lesson, lesson, QA. We can even do lesson, QA, recap. So there's a lot of different ways we can fluctuate this to see how it best fits our learning needs. And this is the other thing, is this is 100% customizable. So the entire curriculum is customizable to fit the needs and the rhythm of every individual, which is why we have the cultivators at each station for the individual to come through at each. The other thing, to answer your question, how do I look for signs? What signs would I look for in a child? If you see a child who is lethargic, who doesn't seem interested, who's disengaged, but it's not something that happens on occasion, that might be the C drop, which is a very normal stage. If you see a child who is regularly in the C drop, that's a red flag. If you see a child who is struggling going from each station on their own, that's a red flag. If you see a child who's not excited, that's a red flag. What child isn't excited? Big red flag. If you see a child who is shy, constantly, big red flag. Now, in the United States, when we see a shy child, the approach has always been force the shy child into action. We don't do that. That violates their freedom. So if you think of the 12 ethics and the creed of freedom, truth, nourishment as the core preservation, think of these as the cultivator's law. Under no circumstance can any cultivator ever violate the 12 ethics or those three core essentials. No cultivator can ever violate those 12 ethics or those three essentials. It will harm the child, and their entire mission is over. So the challenge for the cultivator is doing what they need while preserving the 12 ethics and those three missions, those three core pieces. So when you see a child who's lethargic, go ahead.
When the child is regularly in the seed drop,
Yes.
when the child is struggling to get to the next stage,
Yes.
and also when the child is shy.
Yes. Yes. Shy means I don't feel psychologically safe enough to be myself. That is exactly what it is. I was a shy child. I am speaking from my space. I have interviewed thousands of people, and every shy person, I am not psychologically safe to be myself.
So can you address that now? Give out the difference. There are people who are shy, and there are people who are they fear.
Yes,
Like
it's the same thing. It is the
can't
same thing.
be in a dark room.
Mhm.
Children who fear that they can't be in a dark room,
Mhm.
they can't be alone.
Mhm.
And the people who are shy, they can't stand before a congregation to give a speech the way we are talking. They can't face me.
Yep, it is the same thing. It's just a different spectrum. Shy is I have this amount of fear. Fear is I have this amount of fear. Same thing. Shy is we need to start them off with a smaller group. Shy is their alert system is far more aware than another child's. So what you're looking at is their awareness system. And what they're doing is their tit for tat strategy. They're measuring their vulnerability in relativity to their safety. So what they're doing is they're saying, I am not safe with X. Whereas another person will say, I am safe with X. So the shy person will stay back because they don't feel confident to protect themselves. That child is a first ethic. The child who says, I'm good with this, I'm ready to go. Oh, they're a second ethic. You got a second ethic there. So that's the difference. You have a first ethic child and a second ethic child. They don't go together. And this is the problem. The second ethic child needs to go to the second ethic stage. They get another lesson. Their lesson is learn how to think for yourself without harming others. That's their lesson. The shy child is a first ethic. They have to learn how to self-nourish in a kindergarten room. So their lesson is going to be how to keep yourself safe so that you can gradually test the waters in a discovery center. Now, this is important. What you are talking about is exposure therapy. Psychologists know you cannot force exposure therapy prematurely. So when you have these teachers who are not psychologists and they have a shy child, why don't you go play with the other children? What they're doing is they're forcing exposure therapy prematurely to a first ethical perspective, denying them the indulge A required for self-preservation, which makes them feel more violated, which makes them feel less prepared, which triggers their entire system to say, we need to self-preserve. And now you have an obstructed educational learning system. The child is going to freeze, become paralyzed, and shut down. All because an ignorant teacher said, why don't you go play with the other children and try and make friends? Game over. You just violated the child. This is why education and psychology is so important. Right here. You have a first ethic not ready to be second ethic. So what you want to
Because
do with that shy child is teach the child how to protect themselves by choice and freedom. That's what the child hasn't learned. They don't think they have the choice to protect themselves if they need to. That's the lesson the first ethic child must learn. We've been teaching our children the wrong lessons.
indeed,
Yeah.
because in training, they say that fear is emotional, is emotions, and they say the act of being shy, the shyness, is as a result of socialization, wrong socialization, and you see
I'm going,
now
oh yeah. Yeah, that's
your
what
problem.
happened. That's logic. They have no logic in their understanding. And that's what we just witnessed.
Yes, I'm saying where there was a distinction, and now
Yeah.
everything has been brought together. That is why I'm amazed that some of the
Logic. Yes.
some
Yes. Yeah. What we are
of the
looking at is logical sequencing of catalyst and consequence. This is why we must study logic. So we understand
now
what comes first.
can you comment on this? In while I was in the hospital working, women who had given birth, they are advised that if you don't want your child to be in the position of like we are talking about fear, if you don't want your child to fear when they grow up, you introduce them to throwing them up like this. I don't know whether that happens in the US. And a medical doctor advising such. You see where there is a you see where there is a problem. That is why I told you that I want Dr. Daniel on
Uh-huh.
board so that we can do these things.
Oh, yes, yes, you are correct. I didn't.
I
Thank
told
you for
you I
bringing
want
that to my
Dr.
attention.
Daniel.
Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Also need to
Um,
do that kind of education everywhere, even in the hospitals. When our team shall begin to operate.
oh, that's a very good thing to know about. That tells me I just did a whole lot of math going, okay, so we want to make sure that the program goes over here, drops it down on that side, and we want to make sure that we get in there. Great. Now, Dr. Daniel, yes, that is something I will be sitting down with him. Thank you for that. So the correct answer is fear comes from ignorance. It's fear of the unknown, fear of the self. That is what creates fear. What we are really afraid of, I love this. This is nature, and I'm going, wow, you're real classy. This is gorgeous math. Fear comes from one fear. I don't think I can survive that circumstance. That's all
Yes,
of fear. I don't
yes,
know if I will survive X. Fear of the
yeah,
unknown is fear of the unknown self, which is fear of the unknown self's skills or confidence level, fear of the unknown's self's survival skills, fear of the unknown self's accomplishments and achievements. That's what fear is. We have taken the entire phrase, fear of the unknown self of success, and we've chopped it down. Fear of the unknown self. We chopped it down. Fear of the unknown. We chopped it down. Fear. This is why we need to stop summarizing our words. We've summarized our sentences so much that they don't have any meaning anymore. So now we're going, wait, what's fear again? I don't remember because we probably 2,000 years ago we stopped saying the entire sentence. So what is it again? And this is how words evolve. This is why we need to study linguistics in school, is because when you shorten a sentence, you remove the meaning, and after 2 generations, you don't remember what it means anymore. And then you forget what these things mean. Snorri Sturluson was an Icelandic monk in the 11th century. He lived in Iceland. He noticed that people had no idea what Thor meant anymore. And they were asking questions like, what's Thor's wood? What's Odin's way? Who are these people? Now, Snorri Sturluson said, we have lost the language and thus forgotten the knowledge. So he wrote 2 books called the Prose Edda. The Prose Edda is the only source we have to this day of Norse mythology, because Snorri Sturluson noticed in the 11th century that loss of word is loss of knowing. That's why we go to school.
Loss of words is a loss of knowing.
Yes. So we need to restore the word, to restore the logic, to restore the knowing, to remove the fear. And that is literally the path. If you have fear, that's your very first lesson that you have really neglected your education. Fear becomes prejudice and hatred. If you are at the point of fear, it's too late. There are emotions that happen before fear that warn you, you need to go learn. And we're not listening because we weren't taught how to hear and listen to our emotions. If you feel worried, oh, that's your very first lesson right there. You got to go learn. If you feel anxiety, you did not learn to plan. If you feel stressed, you're overwhelmed because you did not plan. If you have concern, that's your first lesson right there, concern. If you feel concerned, get yourself into a school right there. Concern equals learn. And every time you feel concern, you learn. You're good. Literally, concern and learn. And if you neglect the concern, it becomes fear. It turns into worry and then fear and then paranoia, then obsession and possession. Are you back, Jared? Oh, there you are. Hello again.
Sorry,
Oh,
I
no.
had to.
You know, I had an idea when your data cut out. I had a realization. I was thinking about this is going to you and you are distributing it to your people in Kenya. And I'm working with Ethiopia right now, and they will be getting the same program. You know, when people come to me, I'm going to be telling them, you're going to have to learn from Africa, which means the entire world is going to be getting an education from Africa. I would say that that's a really good, solid tool that will do a lot to end racism and will show just how much Africa is not a dark continent. And I started to see how it unfolds. And I realized that this is a great opportunity to show the world who you really are firsthand. And you have full freedom to do so.
Indeed.
The best way to eliminate fear is to choose to become an esoteric of knowledge. And by them working with you and learning from you, they're going to see just how much they have to learn about Africa. And that in itself is the educational program that resolves racism. That is going to be a fantastic tool for us. That's going to be wonderful.
Indeed, it is going to be wonderful. It is going to be wonderful.
Because the people who suffer from racism are going to have to humble themselves to learn. And that's going to be their first their first trial, their very first trial. And that is a fantastic testament to what kind of a person they are going to choose to become. That is beautiful. Oh, that's totally going to be communicated very clearly. This could not have been more beautifully orchestrated. Like the universe did a phenomenal job with how this is going full circle. Beautiful. Is there any,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes, there are a lot of things that needs to be covered
Mm-hmm.
uh, in regards to our education system. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of things that you have brought forth, of
Mm-hmm.
which are good ground for learning,
Mm-hmm.
because when we are beginning to do our institution, our rehabilitation center,
Mm-hmm.
then we have to do it in a manner that respects the psychology and the ethics and the logics of humanity. So those are
Yes.
the things that we must address. That
Mm-hmm.
is why this kind of education program is very significant. And that is why we cannot underestimate it. We cannot underestimate it. And it is something that I want us to be doing and doing until such a day that we are going to begin to roll out our program.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yes.
Up to that particular moment that we are going to roll out our program, and because everything that is covered is going to be shared
Mm-hmm.
within the groups and within the platform of the professionals. So we are going to share with them. We are going to make these documents available. And I want to beseech you as well also to kindly submit to us the geometry, the other part that you presented to me in,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in a soft copy form,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can do a lot of some of my research. And also we are going to file out the questions in regard to what is there on the document.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, very much so.
That is going to play a very vital role.
Mm-hmm.
But get informed that we are doing a very good job. We are
Mm-hmm.
doing a very good job on the ground. Everything is being put in place where they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And Sav said a lot of things are coming up. A lot of new inventions are being invented, and we are open. Our minds are open, and we are available to pick this
Mm-hmm.
material and also to give them a priority in our system, because they
Mm-hmm.
are what we need. They are what we need.
Yeah.
And so I do believe that that is the right path that we are supposed to be following. And the way I said, there are very many people. There are very many people who are willing to join us, who wants to be part and parcel of this great move. But the only challenge is that some of them are professionals who are working in their own workstations. And I told you that this the last time, that
Mm-hmm.
they are willing. I shared with them the dream, the document of the community Gaia, what we are anticipating, and the plans and all the arrangements, and the kind of curriculum that we are going to bring. We are not going to be confined with any form of system. We have the curriculum that we deem is going to be fit for the children. Very many, very many. You find that there are some individuals who are where they are working there, but they don't like. It's
Yeah.
only that there's no way they can survive. They can't pay their bills. And then they have to fix themselves in that system that is not working. They know it is not working, but there's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
And so when we share with them such a kind of a comprehensive program, then they want to come to this site.
Mm-hmm.
And the only where their hands are still tied is because we can't promise them anything as per now. We can't put them in any kind of payroll as per now. And so we are only waiting from your side. We are waiting from your side. If the fundings comes in, and then we are fully going to incorporate them, and we will share with you the kind of the total population of them, the people who are willing to shift to the other side, where we are going to do this project here.
Yes, yes, very much. One of the lessons that I am getting from nature is how to convert knowledge and idea into reality and generating resource to then produce income and financial gain. And this knowledge is the foundation that leads to this. So the more people do learn, the more their minds start to see opportunity for resource generation, and the more the finance will be presented. So one thing that I must press upon everyone is learn. The more you learn, the more the logic fixes itself in the mind, the more you can see the doors of opportunities that are already there. It's not that the doors aren't there, it's that mental illness and logical sequence obstruction prevents us from seeing them, understanding, and using them. So the more we correct that logical sequence with learning, the more they become visible and we go, oh, this is here. This has been here the whole time and I just couldn't see it. And one of the possibilities of this going is I'm trapped. I am stuck. I don't have resources. I have a bad program. There's a good program over here. I need money to get that program. That's not true. They can have the program now. They get the program. They learn while they're where they are. And then their mind will shift and become healthy and they'll see the way out on their own. That might be the lesson they need to learn. It might.
Learning is learning is continuous. Remember, I told you when we began that whatever we learned yesterday, it has been shared,
Yes.
and they are piling up the questions.
Yes. Very
And so
good.
even those who have not shifted, they are in the WhatsApp groups. Everything that is spoken, every information that has come from you is equally shared to those platforms. So the learning is going on and it is continuous, even despite the fact that they have not permanently shifted.
Yes. Yes. No, the shifting comes later. The shifting becomes visible at the 6th and 7th. And the first time it happens, there are physical side effects. And it's okay. And a lot has to take place. I had one lady I was working with, my first case study, and it took her 3 months to feel her first shift. And it was extraordinary. I've witnessed the shifts in other people who've done the program, and it starts off very slow because you have to repair the damage. Then you have to catch up. Then you shift. That's when you get that first, oh, something's different. Wow, you have the perspective shift, and then it's about 6 months before the next one, and then it's 5 months, and so there's a timer where it starts to get faster and faster. Once you regulate, that is when you're getting to that point of optimized health of one perspective shift per week. So it's not, I've learned this material and boom, you're not, that Mother Nature does not work that way. Mother Nature does everything gradual and with speed, with a frequency. So you're going to see she does everything with differential equations. Mother Nature does everything with differential equations. Everything has got to be, okay, let's do a gradual build and then a gradual decline. Let's make sure we spread it out and make sure we rotate at the same. That's Mother Nature. Anytime you see an abrupt change, that's man-made. That's a lie. That is 100% a snip and shuffle. A snip and shuffle is when man comes in, cuts, throws out the logic, changes everything. No, Mother Nature does not do this. So when you see anything that's abrupt, that's a red flag that someone's tampered with something. That is a huge red flag that someone's tampered, because Mother Nature doesn't do that. That's not her patterns.
I agree. I agree. Everything that is intended to bear good fruits takes time to channel itself to the line. They
Yes.
can't fix themselves at a go. The, the fixing had to take some times for it to be realized. And
Yes.
as you mentioned, there is a lot of damage that needs to be corrected. I agree. A lot
Yes.
of damage needs to be corrected.
Yes.
So that is what we are doing now. That is why we had begun doing this even before the program begins. So that when
Yes.
program comes in, it finds us when we are already channeled into the right direction where we were supposed to be.
Yes. And
How
that's
about
the other thing we want to do is we want to, and we'll be talking about this next, is self-resourcefulness and how to learn on your own. Because DIY learning, there's only so many people, and there's a lot more who need to learn than who can do the training. So what we're going to want is to teach people the DIY learning, which is why these videos are recorded and available, is so people can go in on their own time, go through the checklist. What I want is a curriculum where they have a worksheet and they can just check it off. Have you done lesson 1, lesson 2? Submit your questions. Lesson 3, lesson 4, submit your questions. So we're going to have a full curriculum for them to walk themselves through, and then have a trainer, and that cultivator who trains them is there to make sure you've hit these milestones. Do you have any questions? But it's very, very much self-sufficient, because the more you're self-sufficient, the more you're training yourself. Hey, I don't need a teacher. No, you don't need a teacher. One of the things I saw, this is last week, I was in a meeting. It was a training where I was presenting, and one of the persons in the room was not qualified to speak. And she stepped up and made an announcement about what she thought of the subconscious mind. And her advice literally was, you should fear your own mind. Don't do it without a professional. And I said, how dare you? Don't ever fear the mind. The mind will protect you. If you wander off in a place you're not supposed to be yet, your mind will take care of you. What she said told the world, you don't have the authority to use your own mind. That stuff has got to go. You have the authority to use your own mind. You need to know how to use your own mind. You should never fear your own mind. You need to become aware of it. You need to learn what it is and how it works. Never fear your own mind. And
that's
that in
correct.
itself is what is causing a lot of problems. So DIY self-training is huge for self-confidence and mental health, and it's mandatory at this stage. So the program is do it in order. You must do it in order and preserve the integrity. Follow the instructions and go it alone as best you can. But you also have the 3 stations. You have the metacognitive awareness, which is these videos. And then you have apply the skills you learn, station 2. And then you have the discussion. So everyone should have a group where they can discuss and analyze. And then, and there's the cycle. And then learning how to regulate all of that within that cycle.
That's correct. Now that you told me that you were incorporated in a Greek kind of education system, are we going to have some teachers from Greece as well? You talk about you talk about Finland teachers and Netherlands. How far have you gone with them? Because the last time we spoke about this, you told me that you are going to bring them on board.
With the Finland teachers, what I do is I look at the statistics, global statistics on which country has got their stuff together. Finland is #1 in low illiteracy. It is the most educated with literacy. It is
Yes.
5-year ranking, the happiest country in the world. And it has one of the lowest crime rates. That has my attention. No illiteracy, happiness, and low crime. Oh, I'm watching Finland. So we're reaching out to contact Finland to collaborate with their educational system. I've done a lot of education on studying what they are doing, and I already had the ancient Greek educational system developed. It's Plato's. So I had my program with Plato's, modified Plato's with scientific method, and then I saw Finland. So when I contacted Finland, when I reached out and I started to study what they're doing, it's identical to Plato's. They're actually using the ancient Greek educational system. Now, they're conducting science studies as well to optimize theirs also. So there's a lot of, I'm role modeling them. They give me a living, modern control group with already established data so that I'm looking at what I have and I'm going, well, they've already got it figured out. Now they don't have the full program. They just have the model that he used. So they have his model, but not the information. So I'm taking the information and combining it with the model that they've already established. And I'm going to say this, if they already have those kind of results with just the model, oh, this is going to be beautiful when we integrate the information as well. So I've reached out and I'm trying to get a hold of, it's networking. So it's a lot of tedious communications networking. And I'm looking for teachers from Finland who'd be willing to come on board to take the educational system program we have and then integrate it into a working model. And I'm also watching Japan as well. Now, modern Greece is under the same influence as the rest of the world. And this is an educational war that took place 2,000 years ago. This is why the University of Alexandria was burned in the 4th century, was because Rome declared war on education when they killed Socrates. Then they burnt Plato's school, and then they burnt Aristotle's school. They destroyed Alexandria's university 7 times. They burned the Library of Alexandria. And then in the 4th century, they succeeded. So there is an 800-year-long period where Rome declared war on education and targeted all the philosophers and all the educational systems. And then they hoarded all of the knowledge and education for themselves by the 5th century. And that has been what's been incorporated since the 5th century BCE, or I'm sorry, CE. And that's the problem. That's why we have 2 logic lines. We have the Roman logic, and then we have the ancient Greek. And what Finland has done is they recovered the original logical formula, and they're running with it. So I have additional information plus the scientific method that I'm incorporating into it to amplify it even more, and then restoring it for the world to set that standard. So I'm at this time, no, I have no plans on working directly with Greek educators because the Greek educators that I've been working with and from is Plato and Pythagoras and Aristotle from 2,000 years ago. I would love to get this educational system back to Alexandria, which is in Egypt, and also in Greece, which is their home. It's theirs. It also belongs to Persia, which is Iran. It is a combination of Zarathustra's work from Persia. So it really belongs to Ur. I believe that's Iraq, actually, Iraq. Ur, Baghdad, this is their educational system. This is where it came from, and they passed it over to Pythagoras and Plato, and then they modified it into philosophy. But you have to have a Greek educational system to understand philosophy. We have the Roman educational system trying to teach an ancient Greek system, and it's not working, which is why current philosophers don't get it because they're Roman mindset. It's not compatible. You have to have a Greek mindset with a Greek educational system for this to work. And that is the core dilemma of why we're on this logical line. And the mind and nature is on this logical line, but Rome is not. Rome did a snip and shuffle. This is the gradual evolution and creation of learning with the human mind.
That's correct. So the Finland is the best now
Yes.
because
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. And I was watching one interview that they had done. Americans had gone to Finland and asked them, they were talking about the educational system in Finland versus America. And they asked the teachers there, what is the educational system about? And they're like, well, it's about the self. It's about discovery of the self. The whole purpose of an educational system, and they're right, is for the self, the child, to discover who they are so they can go off to be whoever it is they need to become. And the interviewer, an American reporter, said, yeah, we don't do that. What we do in America is we are taught that we serve the system and we have to get a job and make money for the system. And the Finnish teachers laughed at them and said, well, how's the child ever going to know who they are? That's the problem. That's the problem. No one knows who they are because the
Yes,
educational system was taken away from them and used as a tool to enslave them into another way of life that they didn't even have a say in. And that's what we are providing an alternative to. Yeah, Finn
that's right.
said it very well. She said it very well. How will they ever know who they are? That is
They,
exactly the problem.
they can't know. They can't know.
Yeah, exactly.
They,
Yeah.
so I believe we are going to have the correct program. Believe we are going to have the correct program and most competent institution that has never ever been seen in the world. That is
Yeah.
what I aspire and what I'm working towards. That is why all the time I want to burn the midnight oil
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
I,
I
I
get
am right there
perfect
with you. I
result.
was up at 2 a.m. this morning again talking to Ethiopia, and I'm like, 2 a.m. I can go to work at 2 a.m.
Yes, we really want to roll out this one
Mhm.
and then we will go to Ethiopia and see what we can do there.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
We
And
will do this program, we'll go to Ethiopia, then we'll go to Uganda.
yes,
And
yes,
I know after those three nations, we are going to get a lot of offer from many people who are going to come on board.
yes.
And,
And it looks like
yeah.
the way conversations are going, it looks like we have a lot of people all ready to come on board. So from Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya, and Nigeria, it'll be going to Eldoret City as the primary training hub. And what you said yesterday, establish that, build it up, perfect it, and then we can build other hubs. So at first,
Yeah.
it's going to be everyone needs to go to Eldoret City, get the training there, and then once we have that where it needs to be, then we'll be able to spread and get it into the other countries. That way, it will nourish them and deliver there with ease. But you're right, we do want to make sure that we nail this process down before we distribute it. Perfect first and
Yes,
then distribute. Yeah.
yes, that is what I totally agree with you. We
Mhm.
must have a training center whereby even before we initiate projects in other nations, then they
Mhm.
are going to come here to do benchmarking in Eldoret City. So we
Yes.
are going, individuals who have given themselves to work with us, we are going to give them a room to
Mhm.
come and spend some time in our institution in Eldoret City, and where they are going to do benchmarking. They are going to learn the system, what we are doing, so that
Mhm.
when we are going there, we are going with people who knows what should be done in those places.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is going to be the first training center.
Mhm.
Everybody, every leadership must come here, must get training in this place, and then they go back to those places. And also, I told you that the significance of rolling out a project and seeing the fruits before you launch another one is very important, because you will know the failures so that you
Yes.
don't carry failures from one place to another.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that spreading. And that's a great way to keep it contained. That way it's let's first monitor, let's take care of it, get that temperature right, and then it's distribute. And then we'll be
Yes,
able, yes, you're absolutely correct. We don't want, and like I said, it should only take 3 to 4 data points. And by the fourth one, it will be polished and perfected. It does not take
yes.
long at all. So,
It takes
and we
long
have,
because we are doing a lot of things. We are doing a lot of work. So I also do believe that it can't take long. It can't take long.
yeah, yeah, I don't think it'll take long at all. Correct. Yeah. And I mean, the math is already there, lining it all up to this is the math, this is the physics. I literally all of the academic disciplines are the check. So what I'll do is I'll have a theory and an idea, and that has a math to it. I check the math to it, and then I compare it to music. Yes. Art, yes. Logic, yes. Math, physics, chemistry, biology. All 7 of them are going, checks out here, it's compatible. Well, that's Mother Nature saying, yes, that's right. When you have all 7 academic disciplines giving it a thumbs up saying it complies and it fits into all of us, you have fact. That's how science works. It's literally doing a Sudoku puzzle and you just found one of the numbers and the whole puzzle fills in. It's the exact same thing. So it's one of the things I do is it's the Sudoku theorem. And the Sudoku theorem is one of the math tests I do to check for truth. So I have the truth formula, I have the Sudoku theorem, and then I have Mother Nature's song. And Mother Nature's song is her melodic mathematical patterns, her harmonic mathematical patterns with the Q-axis pattern integrated to get one pattern, and then I compare it to the Sudoku theorem and the truth formula. It's right. It's
It's
right.
right.
There's
Yes.
all the math in all of the universe is going, it's checking out. So this is very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Right. So you also will need to come up with what did you do with the plan? What I can't recall what you told me in regards to the plan, because the facilities all over must have similar plan. We are not
Yes,
going to have different structures everywhere. The structure should look very
correct.
identical.
I did a sketch and I need an archaeologist. Wait, I need an architect. So I need to hire an architect to come in and take my sketch. I am not an artist. So I need an architect to come in and take my sketch and turn it into an actual engineered draft. And then that's when we'll be discussing with various sites. And this is where I've been working with Concentric Industries about them being the suppliers, distributors for the construction sites. So that's something we're doing. But I do need to get an architect on board, and I've started the sketching process. But you're right, we do need a full layout and design team, and that is on the agenda. That is coming.
Okay, that's correct.
I can show you my really sloppy, disgusting sketch. It's like, I mean, it's like a 10-year-old drew it.
Let me see it. It's okay.
Let me
It's
see if I
okay.
can. This is my sketch here.
Can you explain it?
Yes. In the center is it's basically an amphitheater. It's exactly like an amphitheater where this is the lecture hall.
And sorry, this is exactly the map of Kenya. You have drawn the map of this is the map of Kenya.
I love universe math. Yeah, that would be universe math. That's funny. That is hilarious. So that is really interesting. I have to research that now. So this is the amphitheater, which is the lowest point. This is the lecture hall. And we have the 4 areas of study. We have the sciences, the arts, communication. Yeah. Arts. Okay, so there's 2 arts. There's performing arts and then there's music arts. And And basically every science has a corresponding art. Really important, every science has a corresponding art to it. So the arts are aligned with the sciences so that the artist and the scientist can actually overflow. And then, so you have the center and then you have the core piece to learn. And then it spreads to the laboratory in the back. So the laboratory in the back is the third level. That's where dissection takes place. So the metacognitive awareness is done here. And then you have stages for each one of them so that each school can perform and present its own piece from its own area. And then in the back, for instance, you have engineering and building geometry, and you have science and cooking. And this is literally the cafeteria where the scientists, chemists, teach the students how to do cooking. And then in the, excuse me, in the
That's
back of that is the lab. So as you step into, let's say you have integrated mathematics, and that's connected to the engineering building, but it's also connected to the arts and the music because integrated mathematics is part of arts and music, and it's also part of engineering.
Yes.
And that gets into the integrated arts with dance and theater, which is also part of physics because dancers and musicians play with physics, which is going back to the science again with chemistry and cooking, and it goes full circle again.
That's
And then the
great.
second tier, there's a balcony, and the second tier above that is the philosophers section. That is where you get into the deep philosophical thought and the Ashavana for the overview of the grand picture of being able to see that omniscient point of view of how it all fits together. So when you're down on the ground level, you have the ability to do the lectures from the lowest point, which is the amphitheater center. And then as you have the sciences all learning and interacting on their levels, as you learn and develop the mind, it gets noisy down there. So that's where we rise up to escape the noise. That way it's quieter, and that's where they can do the thinking and the round table, the think tank. But when they have something to present, they go all the way down to the bottom again. So
They
this
go
is,
to the ground floor. Yes.
yeah, so this right here is our educational, this is our school. And then we would have, this is where we would have basically like a blacksmith, or we would have a welder's school. That would be off of the engineering school. So that outside of the school, you get into the vocations, and then you get into the business shops. So it starts with the metacognitive awareness lecture into the stages in the studios, which goes back into the labs, which then goes into the real world of the businesses and the vocations.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's a great presentation. That is also what I had in mind.
I love it when math aligns. When it's right, everyone synchronizes. It's great. Synchronicity is one of the most amusing things to me.
Correct.
I
All
think,
right. Anything else?
yeah, I think we're all set. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the video, and then I'll share the video and also the documents with you.
Yes, the soft copy of the documents I'll require. Request if you can submit them to us.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Wonderful. And
So
anything else?
nothing. Have a good one.
You too. You too. I will talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.